Okay, we're going to get started. We are right at 10 o'clock. So thanks everybody for joining today's webinar training. We're going to be talking about the search for three particular species in Pennsylvania as part of a special challenge effort to detect where these species are being found across Pennsylvania. So again, thank you for joining us today. My name is Amy Jewett. I'm the Invasive Species Coordinator here at the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy and the Pennsylvania Natural Heritage Program. I will be recording today's webinar, so if anyone's having trouble with their audio or if you wanted to pass this training along to others, you can do that. It will be recorded and I'll send a link out afterwards. If anyone has any questions, please hold your questions until the very end. I'll be taking questions at that time, and you can either talk on your microphone on your computer, or you can use the chat feature to ask your question that way. But again, please hold any questions that you have until the very end, and also please make sure to put yourself on mute, also to make sure that there's no background noise. So we'll go ahead and get started. Okay. So the purpose of this event, there's multiple components to this. So obviously we want to be able to have everyone identify where we're finding water chestnut, hydrilla, and Wavyleaf Basketgrass infestations in Pennsylvania. So finding where these locations are is really important. And also discerning these areas that may require initial or continued treatment efforts, because we don't want to just find these locations. We want to actually go out and do something about these populations of invasive species. This kind of challenge effort is really important because when we detect these high priority invasive species, we are also helping to hopefully prevent or slow their spread to other locations, which is really important. Also, something like this helps to raise awareness of the harm that's caused by invasive species in general. The more we can learn about these species and their impacts on the environment, the better we all are, because it's important to know about these species, and it's important to understand their impacts on our environment. And also, utilizing iMapInvasives is going to be a really important component of the challenge, because it's a central database where anyone, all of you guys, have access to, and you can collect the data, and it will essentially be stored there for our purposes so that I can utilize it, and you guys can also look at it as well. So more on the details of the challenge, who's involved. So it's going to be all of you guys that signed up for today's training. And anyone else that you know that you might want to have participate in the challenge as well. So you and your technology of choice. So that would involve either a smartphone, a tablet, or your desktop computer. You have to have some kind of way to document what you're finding. So we're searching for three particular species: 2 aquatic, water chestnut and hydrilla, and 1 terrestrial species, Wavyleaf Basketgrass. These are all currently noxious weeds in Pennsylvania. Water chestnut was recently added to that list. It's actually technically going to be a noxious weed, I believe, in August, but it was put out recently by the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture that water chestnut is soon going to be deemed a noxious weed as well. So when is this going to happen? So today, June 25th, we're having this training. And then starting anytime during the month of July is when I'd like you guys to go out and actually do the search, because now coming up in the middle of summer is a great time to be looking for these particular species. You'll be reporting any of your findings to iMapInvasives, and that includes both presence information, so if you found the species, as well as absence, if you looked for it and you didn't find it. And we'll talk a little bit more about each of those as we go through the training today. And so why are we looking for these particular species? Each of them are what we would consider a high priority in Pennsylvania, and they are not yet super widespread across the state. So there is opportunity to hopefully go out and really do something about some of these populations that we're finding, which is really important. And of course, each of them in their own way causes harm to our native wildlife, the habitats, and it also hurts us as well, because a lot of these places, especially in the water with water chestnut and hydrilla, it hinders recreational activities. So these are all high priority species and ones that are very important in our state. So as far as the use of iMapInvasives and the value in using this particular database, here's some of the things that we gain when we utilize iMap for this particular purpose. So as far as looking at data that's already in there and what you guys will be collecting and contributing to iMap as well, we can know the specific places where these three species either already have been reported in the past, but also we can understand where they're being found once you guys start contributing your information as well. We can know precise observation dates that these species are being found on. We can also know the observer, specifically their name and their affiliated organization as well. Something just to keep in mind, any documented reports that we already have in iMapInvasives doesn't necessarily guarantee that that infestation still exists. There is possibility that maybe treatment has occurred, the population may have kind of gotten smaller or even eradicated. So at least we know that these species were there at one point in time at certain locations, but it doesn't necessarily tell you that it still exists, especially if it's from a long time ago. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so we're going to talk about each of the three species in turn so that you get a better understanding of what you're looking for, their impacts on the environment, and so on. So we're going to go through each of them one by one, and we're going to start with water chestnut. So let's first talk about where water chestnut has been found so far in Pennsylvania. So according to the data that we have in iMapInvasives, water chestnut has been found in 8 counties in Pennsylvania, and that includes Berks, Bucks, Dauphin, Luzerne, Mercer, Montgomery, Pike, and Warren counties. And also 2 other databases, the Pennsylvania Flora Project and also the Biota of North America program, also have data indicating that water chestnut has been found in Wayne County as well. So it's been found in several locations, but again, it's not yet widespread across the state as far as we know. So let's take a look at some of these known infested locations. So here's a screenshot from iMapInvasives in a location in Montgomery County. And here's the water chestnut that was found there. Again, this is data that was reported to iMapInvasives in the past, as well as the photograph. Here's a location in the Chamonix Creek in Bucks County. We can see that some nutlets were found there from water chestnut. This is Lake Towhee in Bucks County, and we know that there is a fairly large infestation that is there currently. We'll talk a little bit more at the very end of the training about how you can be involved in a special water chestnut pooling event that happens at Lake Towhee each year. I think it's in its 11th year right now, so we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. This is a location in the Allegheny River in Warren County. We can see there's a single plant there, and there may be more. That's just what the one picture was. And here's a location in Luzerne County. This is another picture of what was found there. And then also here in Bucks County, again, Bradford Reservoir. This one is a pretty big, heavy infestation. Some work has been done there in the past, I believe, by the Bucks County Conservation District, but a large infestation still does exist. So again, even though we know that some of these locations are there, it's good to revisit them and just see, if any change has happened, if, these locations still do have water chestnut. So I would encourage you to maybe revisit some of these places, but also go to new locations as well and see what you can find. So let's talk a little bit more about water chestnut. Let's get to know it. So the scientific name for water chestnut is Straponetans. And as I mentioned before, it was recently named a Pennsylvania noxious weed. Technically, it'll be a noxious weed in August, but it was just came out in, I believe, the Bulletin, Pennsylvania Bulletin, in this month in June, that it's going to be a noxious weed. So water chestnut is a rooted aquatic plant, and for anyone that might be wondering, it's not the same thing as the water chestnut that you would find in your Chinese takeout. So that is a different species, even though it has the same common name. Water chestnut can dominate ponds, shallow lakes, and rivers because it grows in these very thick, dense colonies, and it can grow as much as 4.8 meters or 16 feet in length. So it does get very long in the water. And all the information I'm going to be giving you today as far as how to identify each of these species is from a particular field guide. For water chestnut, it comes from the Pennsylvania's Field Guide to Aquatic Invasive Species, which was done by Pennsylvania Sea Grant. So the leaves of water chestnut are both floating and submersed. The floating leaves are triangular or fan-shaped, and they have noticeably toothed margins on the outer edges. They are arranged in large floating rosettes, and the upper leaf is glossy while the underside is covered with soft hairs. The leaves are kept afloat by spongy inflated bladders that are attached to long stems called petioles, which connect the leaves to the submerged section of the plant. So you can see some of those things here in the photos here on the slide. Water chestnut does have a very small white flower. It has 4 white petals, and it's located in the very center of the leafy rosette of the plant. And these flowers usually appear in mid to late July. So you can also be looking for those if you're finding this species out and about. The fruits and seeds of water chestnut, they are black nut-like structures that have 4 spiny projections, and they are sharp. They are capable of penetrating shoe leather. So just be very careful if you are walking along an area that may be potentially infested with water chestnut. Make sure that you are not stepping on these, because you will not appreciate it if you do. So just be very mindful of that. The stems and the roots of water chestnut, they have numerous finely branched roots that develop along the lower stem, and these assist in anchoring the plant to the substrate. And again, the roots are what can be very long on the plant. So if you are in an area where you have water chestnut and you're pulling it up out of the water, you can be pulling it for a long time because the roots and the stems just keep coming and coming. Sometimes it seems like it won't end, but they can get pretty long. So where can we find water chestnut? What kind of habitat does it like to live in? So water chestnut can grow in any freshwater setting, but it prefers nutrient-rich waters that are less than 16 feet deep. It can be found in places like ponds, lakes, slow-moving streams, and also rivers. So, look-alike species. As far as we know, there are no known species that closely resemble water chestnut. And so that's really a big help for you guys, especially if this plant is new to some of you, because it makes identifying this particular species fairly easy. You're not going to really confuse it with something else. The spread. So water chestnut has a high reproductive rate, with each plant producing up to 15 nuts per season. So if you think about that, in an area that is really densely infested with water chestnut, it definitely has the ability to reproduce rapidly and quickly if each plant is producing that many nutlets. And each nut can then sink to the bottom of a water body, and it can actually remain viable for up to 12 years. So you can imagine, if you have a very large infestation and you have these nuts that are at the bottom of the water body, you'll have a population there for a while, which is unfortunate, but again, that's the science behind the species. It can also spread vegetatively when the rosettes of floating leaves break apart and fragments attach to boats and trailers or float to new locations. And so that's why it's really important when people say to clean your gear, or you see signs that say stop aquatic hitchhikers, clean, drain, and dry. That's essentially telling you to make sure that if you are a person who likes to recreate on the water, and you have a boat or a jet ski or something else like that, make sure that when you take your boat out of the water that you're looking for these fragments of plants and you are removing them. And you're either destroying them or you're keeping them on site, because we don't want these plant fragments to travel to other places where they can then infest these other locations. So again, be very mindful of that if you are a water enthusiast. So distribution. The native range for water chestnut includes Europe, Asia, and Africa. And it was brought to the United States by water gardeners in the 1800s, but it quickly established after being brought here. And it was first observed in Massachusetts, and it has since spread to several states in the Northeast U.S. So we can see here on the map from the Biota of North America program that it is in several states, not just Pennsylvania, in this region. So what are some of the issues that it causes with the environment? So the dense floating mats of water chestnut can really choke out a water body, limiting the light and the oxygen that water body can obtain. Colonies of water chestnut can outcompete our native organisms for nutrients and space, and they also offer very little nutritional value for our wildlife. Water chestnut also impedes boating and other recreational activities. So you can see here in the larger picture on the slide, when you have really large populations of this species, it does make any kind of recreation on the water very difficult to do. So despite its invasive qualities, water chestnut is still sold commercially in some places as a water garden plant. Now, thankfully, since it's now almost a noxious weed in Pennsylvania, technically in August, it will not be allowed to be sold, at least in Pennsylvania. But I think it is still available in other places. So make sure that you are mindful of that. Help to educate others that this and other species that are invasive are available commercially, but we really shouldn't be purchasing them, because we know that if we're putting them in our water gardens or in our home landscaping, that they can spread to our natural areas, and that's where they cause all these problems. So know what you're buying. Don't purchase something just because it's pretty or because it's it's cheap, it's not expensive. Do your homework and know what you're buying ahead of time. There is a lot of great resources out there that will help you if you are interested in purchasing something, but you're not sure if it might be invasive. So some of these resources I had listed here at the bottom, iconservepa.org, Penn State Extension, and also Pennsylvania Sea Grant are some places that you can go to that will be able to help answer your questions on that topic. Okay, so the next species we're going to talk about is Hydrilla. So where has Hydrilla been found so far? So according to data that we have in iMapInvasives, Hydrilla has been found in 26 counties in Pennsylvania, and I have those listed here. This one is on the verge of being widespread, but I would say it's not quite there yet. Again, it's something that I think it's really important to detect early so that we can hopefully do something about some of these populations. So let's take a look at some of the known infested locations. So here's a spot in Montgomery County. We can see Hydrilla was found there. Here's a spot in York County. And here we can see the photo associated with that location. The Susquehanna River in Lancaster County. We can see the rake full of Hydrilla there. This is Pymatooning Reservoir in Crawford County. Hydrilla is currently known to be there, but there is active treatment that is ongoing at that location. The Ohio River in Allegheny County. Here we can see the Hydrilla found at that location. So let's get to know Hydrilla a little bit better. Let's go through some of the specifics. So Hydrilla, the scientific name is Hydrilla reticulata. It is listed as a noxious weed both at the federal level and in Pennsylvania. It's a submerged aquatic perennial that many consider to be nature's perfect weed. It grows and spreads at a very fast rate, and it covers the surface of water bodies, which restricts boating, fishing, swimming, and other recreational uses. And again, all the information I'm going to be giving you on Hydrilla today is coming from the Pennsylvania's Field Guide to Aquatic Invasive Species, which was put out by Pennsylvania Sea Grant. So the leaves of Hydrilla, they're typically strap-like and pointed. The edges contain small, sharp teeth or serrations that are difficult to see with the naked eye. So sometimes you have to actually use a microscope to see them. The midrib or the mid-vein on the underside of the leaf may be red in color, and it may contain spines or bumps. So you can take a look at some of those photos there to see those serrations and some of those coloring a little bit better. Hydrilla does have flowers, small white flowers that float on the water's surface, and they are attached at leaf axils and clustered toward the stem tips of the hydrilla. So again, you can see that there in the photos. The stems and the roots are long branching, and they form intertwined mats at the water's surface. Hydrilla plants are usually rooted to a lake bottom, and they grow upward from the substrate. Then during the late growing season, small white tubers, which are used to store the food for the hydrilla plant, form on the roots, allowing it to overwinter. So again, you can see some of those photos there. So where is it found? Hydrilla can be found in a variety of still and flowing waters. It's been seen in freshwater lakes, ponds, rivers, impoundments, and canals. It can tolerate a wide range of pH, nutrient, and light level conditions. And it's somewhat winter hardy, but it does prefer temperatures between 68 and 81 degrees Fahrenheit. So Hydrilla does have a few lookalike species, and I wanted you to make sure that you're aware of that, because when you're out looking for this species, you might be finding some of these other ones as well. So Hydrilla closely resembles Brazilian Elodea and also North American Elodea. And so Brazilian Elodea is actually another invasive species. North American Elodea is a native, I believe. So if you find Brazilian Elodea, that's actually another one you could report on, but just be aware that is a lookalike species. So here I have some comparisons that you can make. And again, because I'm recording this webinar, you can come back to this slide if you need to help to tell apart these different species that do look fairly similar. So there's a key that you can go through as far as the leaf arrangement, the number of leaf whorls, if the leaves are serrated or not, or they're smooth. So again, this is a really good tip, like a little cheat sheet to kind of keep in your back pocket. Okay, so the spread of Hydrilla primarily reproduces vegetatively, meaning even the smallest living plant fragment can float downstream and form a new plant. So that photo there on the top, even such a small little piece like that that fits on the tip of your finger, that's enough to be able to go and reproduce a new plant. Hydrilla was imported to the United States as an aquarium plant, and recreational activities unintentionally do allow it to spread. So again, just like water chestnut, make sure that you are cleaning your gear. Again, if you're a water enthusiast and you like to go boating or swimming or fishing, make sure that you're looking for these pieces of plants on either yourself or your gear, and you're removing it to make sure that we're not spreading these plants to other locations. So the distribution of Hydrilla, its origin is unknown, but its possible native ranges include Asia, Africa, and Australia. It does have two forms, the dioecious form and the monoecious form. So the dioecious form has male and female reproductive organs that are in separate individual plants. And this form of Hydrilla appears to spread from South Carolina and other locations south. So we do not, I believe, have the dioecious form. But we do have the monoecious form of Hydrilla, which is male and female reproductive organs on the same plant. And so this form of Hydrilla is spreading both north and south, and is typically found north of North Carolina and all of the mid-Atlantic states. So the environmental impacts of this one, because it forms these dense, thick mats, it does interfere with commercial activities. It can clog water intake pipes and filters, and also hinders irrigation. Again, we talked about how it restricts recreational opportunities like boating, fishing, and swimming. It also prevents sunlight from reaching other species that might be growing beneath it in the water body. And as the mats of Hydrilla die and decay, bacteria deplete the oxygen from the water, which then impacts fish and other aquatic organisms that are living there. So because Hydrilla is listed as a noxious weed, it is found on many prohibited aquatic plant lists, and it is not for sale, which is good. We don't want this one to be for sale. We don't want it spreading to other new locations. And it has been given the title of the world's worst invasive aquatic weed. So again, make sure that you're helping to educate others. Make sure that you're helping to let people know to clean their gear and look for and remove these small plant fragments from yourself and from recreational equipment so that it doesn't spread to non-infested locations. Okay, the last species we're going to talk about is Wavyleaf Basketgrass. This is our terrestrial species that we're going to have as part of this year's challenge. So where has Wavyleaf Basketgrass been found so far? Well, according to data that we have in iMapInvasives, this one really is not widespread at all. As far as we know, it's only been found in one county so far in the state, and that is York County. And the main reason for its limited distribution is because it really is fairly new to the state. It's been known from Maryland since the 1990s, but it was first found in Pennsylvania in 2016. So only been here for 3 years, or at least as far as we know. So let's take a look at some of the known infested locations of this species, specifically in York County. So this is a photo again from iMapInvasives in Cadorus State Park in York County, and here we can see the Wavyleaf Basketgrass that was found there. Here's another location within Cadorus State Park. Again, there's the Wavyleaf Basketgrass. And then this is also York County in Gifford-Pinchot State Park. So there we can see the Wavyleaf Basketgrass that was found there. Again, another location in Gifford-Pinchot State Park. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about Wavyleaf Basketgrass. Let's get to know this species a little bit better. Okay, so this, the scientific name for Wavyleaf Basketgrass, I might butcher this name a little bit, Opsalmenus undulifadius. Wavyleaf Basketgrass, it was an introduced subspecies of the native basketgrass, and it's a fast-spreading perennial understory grass. It forms dense stands that can crowd out native herbaceous plants, and it threatens deciduous forests of eastern North America. And the information that I'll be giving you today on Wavyleaf Basketgrass, as far as the identification, comes from a different field guide called the Mid-Atlantic Field Guide to Aquatic Invasive Species. And even though this is not an aquatic invader, it was included in this particular field guide that was done by Pennsylvania Sea Grant. So the leaves of Wavyleaf Basketgrass, they're flat, dark green, and are about 1.2 centimeters wide and 4 to 10 centimeters long. It contains these rippling waves across the leaf blade and has elongated, pointed tips. Leaf sheaths and stems are noticeably hairy, so we can see that especially in the bottom picture there. So the fruits and seeds of Wavyleaf Basketgrass, this is something to keep in mind. So they appear in late summer, and they're covered with a glue-like substance that allows them to stick to other objects and organisms. So we can see here in this picture of this dog that went through, unfortunately, what would seem like a pretty good area that had Wavyleaf Basketgrass, and he came out with all the seeds, which then is very easy to spread to other locations. And that's exactly what the plant wants to have happen. That's exactly what we do not want to have happen. So again, be very mindful of that. The stems are branching and covered in fuzzy hairs, and the rooting occurs at the nodes of the stems. So again, we can see that in these pictures here on this slide. So where can you find this species? So Wavyleaf Basketgrass is a shade-tolerant species and generally avoids sunny environments. So you can almost always find it in shaded, moist, deciduous forests. So again, remember, it does not like sunlight. So look-alike species, again, something to keep in mind. It does closely resemble Japanese silkgrass, which again is another invasive species, one that we do also want to report, and also small carpet grass, which I believe is also another invasive species. These species differ in the following ways. So Wavyleaf Basketgrass leaves are rippled across their width like unfolded pleats and end with an elongated sharp tip. So we can see that there on the in the picture on this slide. Compared to Japanese silkgrass, which has a silvery row of hairs running down the midvein and end in a blunt gradual point. And also, if we're comparing Wavyleaf Basketgrass to small carpet grass, the leaves of small carpet grass have ruffled or wavy edges, but no pleats across the face of the blade, and leaves are smaller in size compared to Wavyleaf Basketgrass. So again, make sure that you are keeping in mind that some of these species do have lookalikes. So if you're trying to identify it, make sure that you're keeping some of those characteristics in mind. As far as the spread of Wavyleaf Basketgrass, it spreads quickly through rhizomes and seeds, and the sticky substance on the seeds allows them to adhere to passing animals, people, or vehicles, and easily spreads to new locations. So again, remember that here we can see another dog that went through an area with Wavyleaf Basketgrass, and we can also see here someone went through, or a few people went through an area and it got stuck to their pants and their shoes. So again, very important to be cleaning your gear and mindful as we go through some of these locations. We might accidentally be spreading some of these species. We want to make sure not to do that. Okay, so the distribution. Wavyleaf Basketgrass is native to Europe and Asia, but it's unclear how it was first introduced to the United States, possibly introduced through contamination of hanging baskets. It was first found in Howard County, Maryland in 1996, and then in 2000 it was found growing along a stream in Baltimore County in Maryland. Documented locations have also been found in Virginia, and the first discovery in Pennsylvania was in 2016. So environmental impacts. Wavyleaf Basketgrass can completely cover a forest floor, which again, as soon as something like that happens, you have a monoculture, you have it competing against our native forest species, and that's a problem. So with a decrease in plant diversity where infestations exist, Wavyleaf Basketgrass provides little wildlife value, again, because our native species are being outcompeted. Also, because it is still relatively new in the United States, its ecological impacts are mostly unknown. However, ecologists believe it could become more widespread and potentially more damaging than Japanese silkgrass. And so most of us are familiar with Japanese silkgrass, and we know that this species is problematic. So if they're saying that it could be more damaging than Japanese silkgrass, then again, this is a species we want to be very mindful of, and we want to try to detect it early. And just so you're aware, as far as the issues that Japanese silkgrass causes, it's known to crowd out native plant species, change soil, nutrient cycling processes, inhibit tree survival and growth, and reduce light availability. So Wavyleaf Basketgrass could potentially do those things and more if they're saying it could be worse than that. So again, make sure that you're educating yourself and others. Clean your gear. Look out for seeds that might be sticking to you, your pet, or your vehicle, so we're not spreading this species to other locations. Also, I wanted to include a quick update from the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. Both DCNR State Parks and Bureau of Forestry are aware of the presence of Wavyleaf Basketgrass in Pennsylvania. And some of the known locations, as we mentioned before, are within two state parks, Gifford Pinchot and Codorus, both in York County. So State Parks has actually held identification training for its staff and conducted several treatment efforts, and they will be continuing those efforts into 2019 and hopefully beyond. As far as the Bureau of Forestry, they've conducted inspections of trailheads and parking areas in southern areas closer to Maryland and Virginia, where those infestations exist. They've also installed educational posters in many southern district kiosks to help inform the public about this species and the need to report it. So DCNR is really trying to educate their own staff as well as the public on this species, because they realize that it is something that's an important species to be aware of, and also trying to raise awareness of it with the general public. Okay, so we've talked about the 3 species. Now I want to go a little bit more into detail about submitting your findings for these species to iMapInvasives, which is going to include both presence and absence information. So if you go out and you think you've found either water chestnut, hydrilla, or wavyleaf basketgrass, you're going to record presence data. And you can do this either on the iMapInvasives mobile app, or you can use the online interface, which would be either your desktop computer or a mobile device. If you looked and you couldn't find any of these species, you're going to record not detected data. And again, you would do that the same way, either on the mobile app on your device or on the online interface, which you can get to also on your mobile device or a desktop computer. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit more about each of these reporting methods as we go through. But first, I just want to talk very briefly about why it's important to report absence or not detected data. So absence data is essentially showing us that an area was searched and a target species was not found. And this information is actually very useful to natural resource professionals if an infestation is found at a later time, because they can essentially piece together that that infestation might be fairly new because that an area had been searched in the past and nothing was found. So again, something like the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources probably would find not detected data to be very useful. So if you're looking for the species and you're not finding it, don't be deterred. Make sure that you're also reporting that information to iMap as well, because that's very important to have. So I want to talk about requesting a login account. So in order to utilize iMapInvasives, if you do not already have a login account, you're going to need to get one of those. And it's not hard to do, and it is free. So there's 2 websites you can go to. You can go to www.imapinvasives.org, and there is a login now button at the very top that you can click on, and that will get you to where you can sign up for an account. You can also go to www.paimapinvasives.org, and you can click on either the register or the login buttons at the top right-hand corner. That will also get you to where you need to be in order to request an account. So again, a login account is required in order to utilize the database and all the tools that it has to offer. You'll also need a login account if you'd like to use the iMapInvasives mobile app on your device. So here's a screen that you'll get to if you're accessing either of these websites. Fill in the information under the sign up section to create your account. And very important to note, afterwards, when you do complete the sign up information, make sure that you look for an email that will come to you that says about confirming your account. You want to make sure that you confirm that account in order to complete the registration process. Okay, so we're going to talk next about utilizing the mobile app. So you can report invasive species data when you're outdoors and away from your computer, and an internet connection is not necessary to create an observation utilizing the iMapInvasives mobile app. So that makes it pretty easy. And then once you're back in an area that does have an internet connection, you can upload your observations at that time. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the specifics associated with the mobile app. So it's designed for use on Android and Apple devices, and it's usable on both smartphones and tablets, but you have to make sure that your device does have an integrated GPS in it. If it does not, you will not be able to use the mobile app on that device. Okay, so I'm going to show you some screenshots, and we're going to go through step-by-step instructions of how to obtain the app and how to utilize it. So first you want to download the app. The screenshots that you'll see here were provided from an Android smartphone. So if you have an iPhone, they may look a little bit different than what you'll see, but it should be pretty similar. So on an Android device, you would visit the Play Store, search using the keyword iMapInvasives, and then you should see something pop up, and you'll follow the prompts to install the app from there. So once the app is installed, the first thing you want to do before you actually start creating data is you want to set your preferences. This is very important. Make sure that you do this first. So in order to do that, you're going to tap the menu icon in the upper left-hand corner, and you're going to first choose your jurisdiction, which is going to be Pennsylvania. You'll then go and fill in your email address and your iMapInvasives password. If you're unsure what email address is associated with your iMapInvasives account, just contact me, and I can help you out there. But you do want to make sure you already have a account already created, or you can go and actually click on the create account or reset password directly from the app if you do not have an account already. So continuing on with the preferences, you want to make sure to click the button that says Retrieve IMAP List. This is going to be really important because it's going to pull information from iMapInvasives into your mobile app. That's going to allow you to have the most updated information, including our track species list, projects, and also organizations that iMapInvasives is affiliated with. Continuing on, you want to select how you want to see the track species list. So you can choose either the common name, scientific name, or you can choose both common and scientific name at the same time. You can also have the option to create a custom species list within the mobile app. And this is a feature that will save you a little bit of time finding the species you want to work with the most. So any species that you choose will appear in the species selection pane when adding an observation. If you don't choose to create a custom species list, the entire tracked species list will appear when choosing which species you observe. So right now we have, I would say, close to 300 species that we're tracking. So if you only are looking for a few, so for example, for this challenge, if you want to make a custom list of just Hydrilla, water chestnut, and Wavyleaf Basketgrass, it's going to save you a little bit of time scrolling through that big list of 300 species, and here you would only have 3. So that's just an option to keep in mind if you'd like to narrow down the track species list a little bit when making observations. You also have the option to choose your picture quality for your observation photos that you take with the app. The default is generally set to 50%, which should be fine, so you shouldn't have to change that. And then there's also an option to save your observation photos to your device's photo library if you'd like to do that. So you can check that box if that's something you'd like to do. You can also choose which base map you prefer to see when entering your observation points. You have the option to choose from either a road view or a satellite view. Also, this is very important to note, when you're using the app and you're logging data for this particular event, the challenge, make sure that you're tagging your findings under the 3-part Species Search Challenge 2019 project. If it's not part of that project, then it will not be part of the overall effort and the event, and it will not be recognized as being part of as what we're talking about today. So make sure that you are tagging your appropriate observations under that project. And you also already have to be a member of this particular project to make that selection, but most of the people that are on today's training already have an IMAP account, and so I did make you members of that particular project. But if for some reason you're not a member of this project, all you have to do to join it is to log on to iMapInvasives on your desktop computer or your mobile device, and choose projects from the main menu and search for the name 3-part Species Search Challenge 2019, and then just request to become a member of that project. So if there's any questions about that, if you're not sure if you're already a member, you can always reach out to me and I can help you with that. Also, you'll want to select your default organization. The online version of your IMAP account must already be associated with the organization to make a selection here. So if the list comes up blank, but you do want to put in an associated organization, just log on to the online version of iMapInvasives, either on your mobile device or a desktop computer, and you can fill that in under your profile. And if you don't want to be affiliated with a specific organization, that's fine. You don't have to. You can just let that area blank in the app. And then once you're done doing all of that, you want to make sure to save any updates or changes that you've made, and that will set your preferences for the app. So once you're done with your preferences, now you can actually begin entering data. So you would open the app on your phone or your tablet, and there is some brief instructions that will show you a little bit of what to do and where to go. Again, these are screenshots that are provided from an Android smartphone. So step one, you're going to go to the upper right-hand corner, click Add Observation, and that's going to be where you're going to start logging your invasive species findings. And for this scenario that we'll go through, we're going to be creating an observation record for water chestnut. So the first thing you want to do is take a photo. This is very important. Make sure that you are either taking a photo right from your camera, or if you're using one that's already in your device's library, that you're selecting it from there. But either way, make sure that your photo includes really good distinguishing characteristics of the species that you found. This is going to be really required by myself or whoever is reviewing your photo to make sure that the species identification is accurate, because without a good photo, we won't be able to do that. So make sure that you're taking really good distinguishing photos with good, good quality. Also, at this time, the app can only save one photo per observation. But if you want, you can also take additional photos with your phone or your tablet and then add them to your observation record when you can access the online version of iMapInvasives at a later time. Continuing on, you want to select the species that you observed. So again, if you made that custom list of just a few species, you can check that box and select your species from there. And if you didn't, that's fine as well. You can just go through the big tracked list, and then we'll find water chestnut from there. You're also going to select either the radio button species detected or species not detected for if you're recording either presence or absence data. You can do both on the mobile app. And the date will automatically default to the current day, but that can be changed if needed. If, for example, you're entering data that you found the day before, something like that. So the GPS capability on your phone or tablet will automatically determine your location. So you don't have to worry about finding where you are. Your phone or your tablet should already be doing that for you. But if needed, you can uncheck that GPS box, that checkbox, to manually move the point to another location on the map if it looks like it's not quite accurate. Also, just keep in mind that if you don't have coverage in an area where you are that you're making an observation, the base map will not show up. It will just be like a blank screen where the map should be. But as long as your GPS is working, it will still mark the correct location. So we can see in the screenshot there on the right-hand side, here's what it would look like if the map doesn't show up because, I don't have an internet connection. But because the GPS is still working, I know that the location is being marked accurately. So you can still use the app and you can make observation data even when the base map is not showing up. So again, continuing on with filling in your observation details, you're going to select a project name. Again, very important that we're selecting that 3-part Species Search Challenge 2019 project name. Also, make sure you're selecting your affiliated organization name if you didn't already do that in the preferences. And then also select the time or enter the time that you searched the area. So in this example, I said I searched the area for about 3 minutes. Also, there's some assessment type questions that the app will ask you. when observing data for a particular plant species. So in this example, it's asking me the size of the area that's containing the invasive. So I selected the option for up to 10 square feet, and also the distribution of the invasive. And so there you can see some of the other options you can choose from. And I chose just a trace amount, so either a single plant or a clump of the species. And then lastly, there is a section that you can add comments to. So to make your observation a little bit more informative, I would certainly suggest adding comments. They're never a bad thing to put in there. You can include information on the population density that you're seeing. You can talk about nearby landmarks, and you can talk about maybe if someone else was with you as an additional observer. So the possibilities are kind of very broad as far as what you could put in there. So here is an example. I said the area appears fairly pristine, only one water chestnut plant was found. So that's what I put in the comments for this particular observation record. So once you've filled in all that information, you'll want to save your observation. And your newly created record will then appear in a list on the app's homepage. And you can see that there on the right-hand side. This list can then be uploaded into iMapInvasives once you're back in an area with an internet connection. So once you are back in an area where you have that internet connection, you're going to go up to the main menu. Well, actually, first you'll click the checkbox for the observation records that you have there on your home page, and then go up to the menu and choose Upload Selected. And once you do that, it will ask you to confirm that you do want to upload the records that you selected to iMapInvasives, and you'll say OK to that. And then from there, you'll see that your records will actually disappear from the iMapInvasives app home screen. And that's a good thing, because that means they have successfully been uploaded to the iMapInvasives online platform. They are no longer living on your app, which is good. That's what we've wanted to do. So if you do happen to see that your queue of records remains on your app, that means something didn't quite go right, that the uploading process didn't quite work. So I would say if that happens, just try that uploading process again and see if the records disappear at that time. But generally, you shouldn't have any problems with that. So now what happens after you've uploaded your records from your mobile app? So your record will now be living within the online version of iMapInvasives, which can be accessed either from a desktop computer or your mobile device. And it will be listed as an unconfirmed record because it has not been reviewed yet. So myself or another expert will review your record and any photos that you included, and we will determine if the species ID is correct from your photo. So again, that photo is very important. Make sure that you're taking really good quality pictures to go along with your records. But if we have any questions about your record as far as the location, if it seems not quite right, maybe it's an aquatic species that's found in the middle of a field, and that just that can't be right. So we might reach out to you if that's the case, or if we have a question about the picture or the species ID, then we would reach out to you at that time. Okay, so we've talked about the mobile app. Now I want to talk about the actual online interface of iMapInvasives, again, which can be accessed either from a desktop computer or either a smartphone or tablet. So first we're going to talk about recording your presence findings using this method. So if you're logged into iMapInvasives, you're going to look for the button at the very top that says Create Record. And you're going to click that. And there's going to be some options that show up that say various things. And you're going to go and choose the one that says Single Presence if you've detected one of the 3 challenge species. From there, it's going to ask if you want to create either a point, a line, or a polygon. And in order to figure out which one you want to make, you create a point if you want to mark an area with a single plant or a sparse population. You can create a polygon if you want to mark a larger infested area. And you have the option to create a line, which you would use that if you were walking along a trail area or a riparian corridor. So kind of like that linear type of survey effort. So in this example, we'll choose to create a point to record our presence data. And what we do at that point is we'll zoom into the map close to the area where we made our observation in order to mark it, or we have the option to enter coordinates. So you can do either of those. You can see I've actually changed the base layer of the map to be a satellite view, which I think in this case is a little bit easier. So that's an option as well. You do have the option to change your base maps if you prefer. I do want to point out the location where we're making our observation has actually already had data reported there in the past. So you can see in this screenshot there is several, at least one large polygon, one more of a linear polygon, and then several points already there. And so you'll notice that if there's already data located at a place where maybe you also want to report information, and that's fine. Just notice that that's what that looks like. So once we are at the area where we want to mark our point, you're going to click on the map to mark that location, or if you've entered coordinates, you want to click the submit button, and your point will show up on the map. If you'd like to, you can create a buffer to further delineate your searched area. So you can choose the amount you might want to buffer your points. Again, that's an option. You do not have to do that if you don't want to. And then from there, you're going to select the species you observe to be present at that location. And you can do so either by typing in the common or the scientific name. And you can actually mark multiple species here. So if I found, water chestnut and hydrilla at this one spot, I can actually mark both at the same time. But in this example, I'm just going to do one. So when choosing the observer, your name will be in the default selection. If that needs to be changed for some reason, that can be updated as long as the person you are updating it to has a registered iMapInvasives account. The observation date will default to the present day. Again, you do have the option to update that date if necessary. If maybe you're entering data that you found a few days ago, you can change that to whatever date you might need that to be. Again, make sure you're tagging your observations under the Project 3-Part Species Search Challenge 2019. And also make sure that you're adding at least one or more photos to your observation, and you're also including a photo credit. Again, those photos are what we will be utilizing, myself as the administrator or another expert, in order to confirm your record. So make sure that you're adding good quality photographs to your records. You also want to indicate the number of plants that were found. That gives you, there's an option there to report that information. There's also an option to talk about the percent cover, the distribution of the population, and any other relevant comments that you might want to add. And then it also gives you an option, in addition to some of those basic fields, there's an option for entering advanced data as well. And that includes things like evaluation type, follow-up information as far as management, and if maybe you collected a specimen and are depositing it at a specific repository like a museum. So that is all available as well if you'd like to fill in that information, but you do not have to if you don't want to. Once you're done entering all of your information, there is a summary page that will show up, and you'll want to check to make sure that all of that information is accurate. And if you need to make any changes, you can go and hit the back button to go backwards and change any information that might need updated. Once you're happy with everything, all the information looks accurate, you're going to hit the complete button, and that's going to submit your record directly to the iMapInvasives database. And after submitting, you'll receive a notification that your record has been saved, so you know that everything went smoothly. And it will also give you 2 specific identification numbers, which identify your particular presence observation record as well as its associated searched area. So even though you created one record, you're essentially creating two records at the same time. That is the new functionality of the iMapInvasives platform. So jot these numbers down for use in querying later on if you would like to go back and find your records. If you'd like to, you can actually click right on that presence record ID number to access its information. So you can, now that you've just created that information, now you can go back in and see what that looks like. And if you do want to make changes, there is an edit button in the top right-hand corner where you would say edit, and then there is an option to say edit record a little bit farther down. And then you'll be able to see more information available and you can make any changes that you might want to. And again, when you're done making changes, make sure you hit that save button that's up there at the top right-hand part of the screen. Okay, so we've talked about how to enter presence information in the online interface. Again, the online interface is accessible either on your desktop or a mobile app, or I'm sorry, a mobile device. Now let's also talk about how to enter not detected or absence information also on the online interface. So similar to what we did before, when you're logged in, click on the Create Record button near the top of the screen. And from there, if you searched for it but you did not detect one of the three challenge species, you're going to choose the single not detected option. And from there, it's going to give you the options again to either create a point, a polygon, or a line. In this example, we're going to create a polygon. Since we already created a point, now we're going to do a polygon. So you'll zoom into the map close to the area where you searched. When you're creating a polygon, you don't have the option to enter coordinates, so you do have to zoom into that area on the map in order to create that polygon. So once you're at the area where you made your, where you searched, you're going to draw a polygon around that area, and that's going to indicate the area that you searched and you didn't find anything. And after you've done that, you go ahead and click the next button, and you choose the species that you searched for but you did not find. So again, just like before, you can select either a single species or you can select more than one. So in this example, I searched this particular water body for both Hydrilla and water chestnut, and I did not find either of them. You can enter the amount of time that you spent searching this area. So in this example, I'm saying that I searched the water body for about 10 minutes. Again, make sure that you are filling in all the other appropriate data for the observer, the date, and the tagged project. Okay, remember to make sure you're selecting 3-part species search challenge 2019 as the tagged project. If desired, you can add photos to this area that you searched but you did not find anything. So any photos that you add would actually depict the area being free of the specific challenge species that you looked for. But it may show other species that are present in the area that are invasive that just are not part of this particular effort. You don't have to include photos, especially for something like this and a not detected record, but if you want to, you certainly can. And then make sure that you're doing this for all the species you selected. So make sure you're adding a photo for both Hydrilla and the water chestnut sections of the area you searched, but nothing is there. At least none of the species you searched for were there. It also asks for a reason for not detecting the species searched. I was looking at the drop-down options for this yesterday, and in this case, the reason field that I wanted to select anyway, the reason was just simply I looked for it and I didn't find it. And that wasn't an option to select in the drop-down menu. So I just put in the comments what I wanted to put for the reason. So I said, search for Hydrilla at this location and did not find it. And I did the same thing for the water chestnut. Search for water chestnut at this location and did not find it. So if there's a relevant reason that you can select from the drop-down menu, go ahead and do that. And if not, go ahead and utilize the comments section. Once you do that, go ahead and click Next. And then it's going to give you a summary of the data that you just entered. Again, make sure you're reading through that. Everything looks accurate. If you need to go back and make any changes, make sure that you do that. And then when you're ready, make sure you click that Complete button at the very bottom, and that will submit your record to the iMapInvasives database. You'll get a notice that that your record has been saved. Again, that's always reassuring to make sure that the record did indeed go through. And just like before, you'll get 2 identification numbers that are specific to this record that you just created. So make sure that if you want to go back and find this record again, that you're jotting down those identification numbers for querying later on. So again, if desired, you can actually click on that Not Detected Record ID number to access this information. And just like before with the presence record, you can make edits by clicking on the Edit button that's near the top right-hand part of the screen. There is also an option when you're creating records to select the multi-record searched area as an option as well for this particular challenge event. And you're going to select that if you made multiple presence records and multiple not detected records at the same location at the same time. So that just allows you kind of having to not have to do, too much data entry. It sort of simplifies the process for you a little bit. And that's going to be very similar to what we've already discussed in the previous slides. So I don't have any more slides to show you for that particular record type. But it's going to be, again, very similar to what you've already just seen. So again, if you're looking at an area and you find water chestnut, but you also looked for and didn't find hydrilla, you can go in and make a multi-record searched area record type. Okay, so we talked a little bit about jotting down those identification numbers for data querying later on. So I do want to show you quickly how you would utilize that information to go back in and either find your specific records, or if you want to look up data for an entire species, how you go about doing that. So to query for your specific records, you're going to go and make sure that you find the area, or make sure that you're recalling the specific IDs that you already jotted down. And then on the main map page, you're going to choose the button that says Find Record. And in the type field, you're going to choose either presence or not detected. You're going to type in the record ID number, and then you're going to click Find. And your record should show up on the map, and a table will also appear that will show you your record. So you can click on any of those 2 buttons that say Details to pull up the record, to view it, or you can also make changes if you'd like to. So in this particular example, I searched for a not detected record that I had just created, and 2 species names appear in the table, so we can see both hydrilla and water chestnut is showing up in that table. That's indicating that this was a search for both of those species, and neither of which were actually found at the location because I'm searching for a not detected record. So you can also query for a specific species. So for example, from this challenge, afterwards, when all the data is in there, if you'd like to look and see what other people have found, you can do that. So on the main map page, you would choose the button that says Filter Records. And in the name, in the species name section, you can type in either the common or the scientific name for the species that you're interested in. So for this one, we're interested in looking for data for Wavyleaf Basketgrass. And from there, you just click the Filter button. From there, the map will show you a variety of orange hexagons when you're zoomed out pretty far at the state level. And that's indicating that data for that species does exist. So if you zoom in a little bit closer, you'll get past the point where the hexagons will actually transform into the point data or the polygons or the lines that people are entering for that species. So you'll get to a point where the hexagons transform into that more specific type of data. And so that's pretty cool, because it's nice to be able to go back in and not only look at your own information, but also look at data that other people are entering as well. Okay, so what happens when the challenge is over? Remember, we're searching the entire month of July, but what happens after July is over? So once it's over and we get into the month of August, all the data will be analyzed and a report is going to be created by yours truly. The data analysis will include information on the following. So any new water chestnut, hydrilla, and Wavyleaf Basketgrass locations and infestations that were found are going to be highlighted in this report. And also any photos that were associated with those findings will also be included. We're also going to be talking about areas that might require brand new treatment efforts, or places where treatment maybe has occurred in the past and really should continue. Again, because we want to make sure that these infestations are not, going and, they're essentially spreading into other locations. So we want to make sure that we're doing something about these known locations. And also, we're going to be including our not detected information as well. So areas that were surveyed that were found to not have water chestnut, hydrilla, and Wavyleaf Basketgrass. So it's going to include both the presence and the absence information. And all participants, so everyone on today's training, and all registered iMapInvasives, all iMapInvasives users from across Pennsylvania will receive a copy of the report that is created. And the report will also be posted on the PAIMapInvasives.org website. And so here on this slide is a picture of the report that I created last year. It was actually for specifically water chestnut. This year is the first year that we are branching out and doing 3 species, not just water chestnut. And then any data that's included in this report is going to be really helpful to folks who are out in the field, on the ground, doing these survey and treatment efforts in order to help to prioritize where they are going. So, you might think, oh, I only, maybe found one thing and it was a not detected record. Even that information is going to be useful to someone somewhere. And so any information you can contribute will be included in this report, and it will be useful. So the data entry deadline for this challenge event is going to be August 15th. So make sure that you have all of your data submitted to iMapInvasives by that time. And after August 15th, I will start compiling the analysis reports. So I also mentioned, because this is a challenge, there are prizes involved in this event. So the top 3 individuals that enter the most data for the 3 species that are part of this challenge into iMapInvasives will be declared the winners of this special challenge event. And they will be announced at the very end of August, on August 31st. And each individual will get to choose their portion of the grand prize package, which you can see here. So there is 3 gift cards that are going to be given away and 3 other things. So each winner will get to choose 1 gift card and 1 of the other special items. And so the gift cards are going to be from REI, Sierra Trading Post, and Cabela's. And the other items are a beach towel, a baseball cap, and an Nalgene bottle. So again, hopefully that gives you a little bit of an incentive to really get out there and search for and report what you're finding. And just to note, data can include presence and not detected information as far as entering the most information. And any data that you enter must be for water chestnut, hydrilla, or Wavyleaf Basketgrass, and it has to be tagged under that 3-part Species Search Challenge 2019 project. If it's not tagged under that project, it will not be counted as part of this event, and it will work against you as far as maybe winning part of the grand prize package. Okay, so wrapping up, I do want to quickly mention there is ways for you to be involved in current efforts that are ongoing. There's an effort that's happening this summer to help remove water chestnut, specifically in Bucks County. I mentioned this before. There's an event called Paddle with Purpose at Lake Towhee. Megan Rogales, who's currently, I believe, on today's call, on today's training, is the one who hosts this event. It is at Lake Towhee County Park Boat Launch. The address is there in Quakertown. You can see that here on the screen. The dates for the event are July 16, 17, and 18. So it's a Tuesday, a Wednesday, and a Thursday. And each day, the water chestnut pool goes from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. So if you're in that area and you'd like to participate in this event, you can choose to sign up for one day, or you can participate for 2 or all 3 days if you choose. Lunch, gloves, and heavy-duty trash bags are provided for all volunteers who pre-register. And if you'd like to sign up, there is a web link here at signup.com that you can sign up at. You can also contact Megan Rogales directly. She works for the Bucks County Conservation District. So either way, if you'd like to sign up, I would certainly encourage you to do this. I actually participated in this event last year, and it was a really great event. A lot of people came out, and we helped to make a dent in the water chestnut population that is impacting Lake Towhee. So again, if you want to be involved in this, that's happening this coming month in July. Okay, so we have reached the end of our webinar. I am happy to take questions at this point. We are wrapping up a little bit early today, but that gives us plenty of time for any questions you might have. You can use the chat box if you'd like to chat your question. You can also use your computer's microphone if you'd like to ask a question that way. And yeah, we'll go ahead and ask your questions if you have any. Okay, so I don't see any questions coming up, which is fine. I guess that means I did a really great job of explaining everything to you guys. That makes me feel good. But again, if you guys have any questions at a later time, please feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is here on the last slide. You can reach out to me via email or phone and just follow up with me. And again, if you'd like to share today's webinar recording, which I will be sending out later on, feel free to do that if you know of other people who might be interested in participating in the species challenge. So again, if there's no questions, we will go ahead and wrap up early. And I just want to say thank you to all of you for attending. And yeah, I guess we'll talk with you guys soon. So take care and thanks again.